Afternoon, everybody. This is Tim Cady. I'm a senior meteorologist here with the National Weather Service Houston Galveston office. We'll be joined just in a bit by Katie Landry-Guyton, our senior service hydrologist, who's going to provide an update on our river conditions and the ongoing river flooding, particularly along the San Jacinto and Trinity basins. So just an overview of the past 24 hours. As you can see on the left there is our multi-radar estimate of observed rainfall. We've seen up to a foot of rain in some places, particularly across portions of Walker, Trinity, and San Jacinto counties, as well as other portions of the areas north of the I-10 corridor is where that real hot spot has been. Some of the observed rainfall totals on the right side there from the Harris County Flood Warning System Observation Network shows observed rainfall totals as high as just under a foot at 11.96 is our hotspot there just to the southeast of Trinity. Rainfall totals generally going down the closer you get to the coast, with the city of Houston itself receiving anywhere from 1 to 3 inches. Areas further south from the city of Houston not picking up much measurable rainfall so far. But again, as we've all probably seen today, that real hotspot being there across those northern areas and, of course, contributing to that ongoing river flooding along the San Jacinto and the Trinity rivers. We are expecting some additional rainfall overnight. We're going to have the redevelopment of some showers and storms overnight into tomorrow. That being said, we do not expect rainfall to be as widespread as we saw today. We also don't expect those higher end totals that resulted in the extensive flooding that we saw today. The highest totals we are expecting to see, again, most of this will come in the overnight hours into tomorrow morning, should remain to the south and to the east of those areas that were most impacted by the flooding over these past 24 hours. So you can see I've marked a few locations on the map. It looks like right now we're expecting most of the higher totals to set up, again, south of that I-10 corridor, further away from where we saw some of those higher totals today, as well as east of the areas we saw those higher totals today. Widespread totals could range anywhere from 1/2 inch to 2 inches of new rainfall. But as we typically see in flood events here, there are the potential for some isolated higher local totals, that being about 3 to 4 inches. We expect the higher totals to generally be concentrated south of the I-10 corridor. A flood watch does remain in effect. That's now been extended until 1 p.m. tomorrow. We have gone ahead and removed Austin and Colorado counties from that flood watch, as it appears the threat for flash flooding has ended for those locations. All the other counties in the previous watch remain in the watch through 1 p.m. Friday. Of course, a major contributing factor to this is the wide saturation in the soils. This continues to pose an elevated risk for flash flooding. It won't really take much extra rainfall to result in flash flooding. Of course, that's also aggravated by the river flooding that's ongoing. And of course, runoff from this rain that we're expecting to develop overnight into tomorrow could further aggravate the ongoing river flooding that Kate is going to discuss in detail in just a bit here. In terms of severe weather, we of course saw some pretty strong wind gusts that resulted in power outages, tree damage, things of that nature this morning and afternoon. Tomorrow, we're not expecting that to be a threat. So you can see the Storm Prediction Center's outlook there on the right. We are expecting to see maybe some general non-severe thunderstorms, but the threat for those severe wind gusts and hail is not expected to be an issue tomorrow. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Katie, who's going to provide us with an update on the ongoing river flooding.
Okay, all right. So currently we've got action to minor flooding occurring across several of our other basins outside of the Trinity and the San Jacinto. So we'll add some of those into the end of the briefing. But the majority of this is going to be focused on the Trinity and the San Jacinto. So we'll start with the Trinity and then kind of work our way over to the San Jacinto. Currently, right now on the Trinity, we're experiencing action to major river flooding. Lake Livingston has increased their releases from 81,300 CFS yesterday up to 114,000 this afternoon. I believe the number has actually gone up. I'll need a double check. I think it's up to closer to the 119. The San Jacinto River is currently experiencing action to major river flooding. Lake Conroe is currently releasing 69,500. So these releases are being accounted for in the updated forecast, as well as 48 hours of forecasted rainfall. And I did confirm that Lake Livingston has gone up to 119,000 as of about 45 minutes ago, 119,600. So we'll have to account for that in the evening forecast, and we'll talk about that in just a second. As far as, like I said, there are a couple of rises to action stage on the Brazos, but we are expecting record flooding on the Navasota, and we'll talk about that after we go through Trinity and San Jacinto. So a lot going on, so let's just kind of dive in. So I wanted to start off real quick, kind of showing what has changed for a lot of the forecast points as opposed to what we saw yesterday. So with some good news, Budice Creek up in Madisonville actually only looking at minor flooding, maybe knocking on moderate flooding, store step, around 20.2 feet. So that was good news for them. But working our way downstream, we saw Riverside jump up to major flooding. So current forecast is showing around 140 feet. We're currently at 139.6 feet. This definitely continues structure flooding. This is right upstream of Lake Livingston. Unfortunately, we don't have an inundation map to show since it's in the backwater of Lake Livingston, but we can confirm that there are structures flooded and more widespread structure flooding in this area, especially in the Green Ridge Shores subdivision. Looking right around Lake Livingston, where we took a lot of, Lake Livingston captured a lot of the flows, but Long King Creek jumped up to moderate flooding, so we're currently seeing it near its crest around 27.38 feet. So that's comparable to what we saw just a couple of days ago. So very similar impacts to what they have already seen. And that's going to be on a slow fall as we go into the next day to 2 days from now. Now getting into the more concerning parts of the Trinity. So with the increases from Lake Livingston, this is accounting for 114,000 CFS coming out of Lake Livingston. We've got the forecast for Goodrich rising up to 49 feet. That is the record, 49 feet. For those of you who don't know, Lake Livingston peaked their releases at 110,000 during Harvey. So we are now about 9,000 over the peak that we saw during Harvey. And so we are currently expecting 49 feet at Goodrich. We're at 44.3 feet right now. As far as impacts go, you can see very similar to impacts to what you saw a couple days ago. Just more widespread structure flooding, especially directly below the dam and some of those locations that we had highlighted, such as Holiday Lakes. I don't have those inundation maps here right now since they're very similar to what we saw, but those maps are available and we can provide those if you're interested, but very comparable impacts to what we saw a couple days ago. Then working your way downstream, so before you get to Romare, we've got Rye. Again, this forecast is showing a rise to about 34.2 feet within the next 2 days. You can see that we're already in moderate flood stage and it's continuing to rise. A lot of the local rainfall has already started getting into the gauge location. Not quite meeting record flood here, but still experiencing near record flood stage, which is quite concerning. We do anticipate all of these flows, in addition to the flows coming from Livingston, getting down to Romare. So we are anticipating a rise at Romare up to 45.9 feet. Record there is 43.5 feet. We're expecting that crest to be on Saturday morning. So you're going to continue to see a quick ramp up, probably reaching major flood stage within the next 12 hours. And then seeing that kind of reach over record stage within the next 12 to 24 hours. Down to Liberty, currently seeing 30.27 feet. This is going to continue to be on a slow climb up to 32 feet. I did speak with City of Liberty this morning, and they do imagine this is pretty manageable for them. However, there are cases where they're going to have some water kind of flowing around the backside of the city. And again, a lot of comparable impacts to what you saw earlier this week as far as impacts on what's going to be flooded, structure flooding, etc. I do know at 32 feet they have to bring in additional pumping capability. So we've coordinated with them on the possibility of needing to bring that in with a crest of 32 feet going into the weekend timeframe. I think the crest is currently set for May 5th, so on Sunday, but already seeing major impacts in that area. And then working way down to Moss Bluff, seeing a rise up to about 17.5 feet by Tuesday timeframe. So this is currently at minor flood stage, expecting to rise above moderate flood stage probably by Sunday, and then getting up into major flood stage going into the Monday, Tuesday timeframe. This one we do need to provide the updated inundation map for. There are some additional impacts. So we will get that to those areas that are impacted. The only issue is it's in the coastal emission zone, so there's going to be some additional discussion over what can be trusted in the inundation map and what can't be. So that's why we're not going to cover it right now, but we can certainly talk about that on a separate call if needed. Okay, switching over to the San Jacinto, we're going to start off on the East Fork and then we'll work our way over to the West Fork since we have the West Fork being impacted by the releases from Lake Conroe. So looking at the Cleveland forecast, what has changed? So basically we're looking at a crest of 24.6 feet. This is slightly lower than what we were anticipating this morning, mainly because the rainfall forecast has come down a good bit. So that's good news for the folks in that area. However, we're still anticipating a crest higher than we saw earlier this week. Earlier this week, we crested around 21.6 feet. Now we're currently expecting a crest of near 24.6 feet, which is in major flood. So additional impacts from what you would have seen earlier this week. That crest is expected to be within the next 24 to 48 hours. I think the crest is occurring tomorrow night time frame. So seeing us rise above major flood stage tomorrow midday sometime. Then working your way down to New Caney, you can see we had a slight bump up from a lot of the local runoff from the rainfall overnight. So right now, looking at us being near the 68 foot forecast point, and then seeing that bump kind of slow down until we get all that routed water from upstream from the Cleveland forecast. We're expecting a crest of 76.8 feet. This is slightly lower than what we were showing this morning. We had a crest of 78 feet, so about a foot lower than what we were currently expecting. So this is still pretty comparable to what we were looking at this morning, though, as far as impacts go. I know we were talking about the homes being inundated on both the right and left banks near FM 1485. That is still valid. So I did include the inundation map for this area just to pinpoint some additional impacts that could be seen as compared to what we saw earlier this week. So this is the inundation map for 78 feet. Again, we're currently forecasting 76.8 feet, so a little bit lower, but still comparable. We've got structure flooding on both the right and left banks. Those are in the red circled areas. This map gives you the depth in addition to the extent, and this is the forecasted inundation. We also have the potential for roads inundating, cutting off some homes on the upstream side. That's in that purple area, as well as upstream of the forecast, closer to the Liberty County, Harris County, Montgomery County quadrant. Just to the north of that, we've got some potential structure flooding up there as well. And then if you work your way downstream, unfortunately, it's clipped off here. The structure flooding downstream is not shown, but is still expected. This was discussed yesterday on our previous call. A lot of those neighborhoods that were being pushed out from the local officials, those are still under the gun with this current forecast. So overall, seeing a lot of impacts for this location. FM 1485 will still be impassable. More widespread flooding of homes on both sides of the river. and several neighborhoods being cut off with isolated structure flooding in those neighborhoods. As far as Peach Creek near Splendora goes, expecting a rise to major flood stage, currently at 15.88 feet, rising to 20.5 feet over the next 24 to 36 hours. That crest is expected to be sometime tomorrow afternoon and evening time frame. Looking at the inundation map for that location, this inundation map is for 20.5 feet. You can see that some of the key locations that we're pointing out are verified from our current impact statements. So concerning for inundation of intersection US 59 and FM 2090, we've got concerns over water inundating the Green Forest and East 12 Oaks area. That would be potentially cutting off homes, as well as homes are beginning to be threatened near the Buck Road area as well. So these are some of the impacts that we're currently noting. Again, you can take a look at the inundation map that's on the Inform website that we will provide for you, so that you can take a look at any additional impacts that are not noted here. These were just some of the ones that we do know are expected based off of previous floods. Looking at Caney Creek near Splendora, so currently in action stage, we're expecting a rise to 22.9 feet. Again, the timing of that is tomorrow night into Saturday morning. We're expecting a rise above major flood stage sometime tomorrow. As far as the impacts go, again, very similar to Peach Creek, we tried to highlight a lot of the known impacts from previous floods, such as FM 2090 taking on water, the Crockett Martin Road and the Linda Lane areas. But these are not the only impacts that could be felt. You can go and take a look at the inundation map. If you have questions about these inundation maps, please do not hesitate to let us know. But these are some of the ones that we do know of known impacts from previous floods. Looking on the West Fork now, so we've got Lake Creek above the Woodlands, currently forecast to crest in moderate flood stage, 144.6 feet. That timing is going in, that crest is for tomorrow into tomorrow night. And we're expecting that to rise above moderate flood stage sometime tomorrow morning, and it'll be on a slow fall after that. We did provide the inundation map yesterday for Lake Creek for minor flood stage, so we would need to provide the updated inundation map for the moderate flood stage if needed. And then for the coordination on the West Fork, taking into consideration the flows from Lake Conroe, as well as all of the rainfall that fell, we are currently sitting at 113.2 feet. We're expecting a rise to 125 feet, and that's going to be probably peaking out on Friday night into Saturday morning timeframe. We're going to start seeing the river really start to take off in the next few hours as that water from Lake Conroe is starting to make its way down to Conroe. And then you're going to see that it will be kind of on a slow fall, not expecting it to come below flood stage until probably Monday timeframe, Sunday night into Monday timeframe. Here's the inundation map for the West Fork at Conroe. This is using 125 feet library map, just pinpointing a couple of hotspot locations for impacts, isolated structure flooding on the right bank, just downstream of 45. Several homes inundated in that area, as well as widespread structure flooding on the left bank up near River Plantation. I do know Montgomery County is already aware of all of this, but wanted to make sure we showed the inundation map with the depth included. And then some structure flooding possible further downstream below the tributary Little Caney Creek. That area is also threatened with potential structure flooding. Working your way downstream to Porter, all that water is going to take time to get down there, cresting at about 91.4 feet. That time frame is going to be going into Saturday into Sunday time frame. That is looking at moderate flood stage in that location. So basically impacts are a little bit minimal near Porter. Looking at the inundation map in that location, we are highlighting the potential for the turnaround of State Highway 99 being inundated. That'll happen around 83 feet. Isolated structure flooding upstream. Basically, some potential for homes being cut off or structures actually being inundated. You can see some of the depth in that area is about 3 to 6 feet. And then some low spots on State Highway 99 are not expected to be inundated until about 92 feet. So we are just under 92 feet with the current forecast. So not currently expecting State Highway 99 to be inundated. Looking at the West Fork near Humble, so we are currently at 52 feet, 52.1 feet. So we're right at major flood stage. We really saw that jump up from a lot of the local runoff from all the rainfall that we just had, as well as flows from Spring Creek are starting to kind of get in there. We're going to continue to see the rise all the way up to about 62 feet. The crest is currently expected to be sometime on Saturday night into Sunday morning. And that is going to be on a slow fall. We do anticipate a potential fall below flood stage towards the middle of next week, Monday, Tuesday. We'll probably see it coming down into moderate and then below minor, hopefully on Tuesday timeframe. Looking at the inundation map for Humble, trying to pinpoint specific locations where we might have structure flooding. There is structure flooding expected upstream along Riverview Drive. That's not shown on this map. We are anticipating some roadways cutting off structures on the left bank, just to the north side of the river, in several locations, especially low-lying areas as well. And then we're looking at the potential for roadways cutting off structures on the south side, the right bank, several areas, several communities on the south side. They're highlighted here in those red circled areas. You can see some of the depth really ranges on the impacts. A lot of those homes are elevated, but there are some structures down in the Kingwood area that are not, they're not elevated, excuse me, to where we could potentially see some structures taking on about a half a foot to a foot of inundation in some of the Kingwood areas. And then, of course, we're looking at roadways cutting off a lot of these communities, so making sure we're passing along a lot of the potential for this happening going into the weekend time frame. So all of that's going to be passing through Lake Houston, currently simulating 120,000 going into Lake Houston, potentially more than that. And then all of that's going to be routing down to Sheldon, which would be impacting our ship channel folks. Currently, we've got a crest of 19 feet, and that is for Sunday into Monday time frame. We're currently at 9.5 feet right now. So we're going to be reaching minor flood stage within the next 6 hours. And we're going to continue to see all that water starting to route down as we get into the weekend time frame, and then really cresting out towards the end of the weekend. And as promised, we did mention that we had record flooding forecast for Normandy. This was actually the morning forecast. There's an updated forecast from this afternoon. Very similar crest, 24 feet. That's expected to occur Saturday into Sunday time frame. A lot of that's being driven from the heavy rainfall plus the releases from Lake Limestone. The impacts are limited in that area, thankfully, but we do have an inundation map that is available for further upstream and downstream of our current impact statements, so that can be provided to the locals in that area. And then we've got a lot of rises to action stage on the Brazos River. We do need to watch the Brazos River at US 59, currently showing a rise to minor flood stage towards the end of the 5-day period, looking at 65.9 feet. We still have time on this, but I did want to at least bring it up that this is something that we're watching.